Hello, and welcome to another edition of the iRunOnBeer Friday 5. But before we jump into this week's episode, I actually have a special announcement about the iRunOnBeer Friday 5 and a special edition iRunOnBeer Friday 5 that's coming up. So not next week, but the week after, the final weekend in April, April 26th. I will be asking you for feedback on what you want me to go over in the Friday 5. So specifically, I'll be asking for questions and be doing a possibly live AMA where I'll pick the top 5 questions that are submitted and answer those on air for the April 26th edition of the Friday 5. So if you have burning questions you'd like to know about iRunOnBeer, about my running, my beer drinking, my personal life, whatever it is, shoot those questions down in the comments below. I'll also be taking questions on Instagram at iRunOnBeer. But the more questions the merrier. Like I said, I'll choose the 5 best questions and then be answering them possibly live on the April 26th edition of the iRunOnBeer Friday 5. So something to look forward to, and if you have questions, take 2 weeks to think about it. I'll remind you again next week, but just go ahead and post those questions in the comments below. So that's the announcement, and without further ado, let's dive into this week's episode. So for this week's Friday 5, I wanted to talk about one of my favorite running apps. You've probably heard about it before, but if not, hopefully this will be all new information for you. But I wanted to talk about one of my favorite running apps, Strava. So this actually isn't just a running app. It actually can track running, biking, and swimming, I believe. I've only used it for cycling and running. But it's basically an app created for athletes, not only to track your runs, but also to share your activity with other athletes. So Strava, if you're unfamiliar, I actually just learned this in the research I did for this episode. It's a Swedish word which means strive, and the whole idea behind the app is basically, like I said, it's a social network but designed for athletes. So it's really designed to give you an opportunity to track your runs, track your activities, share those activities, and then interact with other athletes from around the world. So you can have core groups of people that you interact with most commonly. I'll kind of talk a little bit about that later. Or you can just follow maybe famous athletes that you enjoy or people that you meet through the app. So it's a really cool way, like I said, to showcase not only what you're doing, but also to be inspired by other athletes from around the world. The first thing that I'm going to talk about is that you don't have to just use it on your phone. It can actually sync with a number of different devices. Specifically for me, I use it with my Garmin watch, but it's awesome because I can sync my Garmin with the Strava app, and that way I don't have to use the GPS on my phone while I'm running. I do not have unlimited data, so that is very appreciated, but I can just track all of my runs on my watch, and then as soon as the watch connects to the phone, it just syncs all of the data and analytics so that I can analyze it in the Strava app. So like I said, I really appreciate that because phone batteries aren't great, especially as the phone starts to get older. I don't have that unlimited data plan, so using the GPS does eat up a lot of data for me. So it's nice to just be able to run with it on my watch and then sync it to my phone later. The other thing that I enjoy about that is I do like to be as minimalist as I can. I think I like to imagine that I'm more minimalistic of a runner than I actually am. But if I can leave the phone at home, anything that I can do to just kind of break that tie with electronics is something that I appreciate. So I do like that you don't actually have to have the app with you when you're running. You do have to have a watch. I'm not going to break away from the electronics totally, but I do appreciate that I can just go for a run with my watch and then sync it with the app later. So really the first feature I wanted to highlight was just its ease of use, but then also that feature where you can connect it with a number of different devices so that you don't necessarily have to carry your phone with you on every run. Number 2 is one I mentioned in the intro, and that's the app's ability to really communicate and interact with other people in your community or from around the world, and that's through the clubs feature. So one thing that I really like about Strava is it allows you to create sort of groups that they call clubs of like-minded athletes to compete against, to communicate with, to sort of motivate each other. It really depends on the group or the club, what your interests might be. But it's a nice way, like I said, to just bridge that gap and make connections with people from around the world. So I know for BibRave, we have a private BibRave Pro group just for our pros that are involved in the BibRave Ambassador program. But then there's also a public BibRave club for anyone who's interested in BibRave and loves the brand to participate in. And we post a lot of things on there. Everyone posts their runs on there. It automatically syncs so you can kind of see who the weekly, monthly leaders are mileage-wise, but can also reach out to ask for advice. So you can make posts just like you would in any other social media group. And so it's just a nice way to kind of increase that interaction and help you find like-minded people. Another way where I was able to use this a lot more was when I was training for my first marathon. The marathon actually had a training club set up on Strava, so that was nice because it was my first marathon. I didn't really have an idea what I was doing. I kind of had a basic training plan, but I could kind of check in with other people who were running the race and say, okay, my mileage is sort of on par with a lot of these other people. I could ask questions if I had questions. So it's just a way to connect with other people in a meaningful way and find like-minded athletes like yourself where you can ask questions and just increase that interaction between other There's just a nice way to organize on the app. Number 3 can be tied to clubs, but doesn't necessarily have to be, and that is the challenges feature on Strava. So another cool feature through the app is that brands, clubs, groups, the app itself will create these challenges and then just put them out to the community as a whole for you to decide whether or not you want to take on. So it's just another cool way to interact with other people, but then also find a way to motivate you to maybe push past your comfort zone or try to take on some kind of new challenge. So there's usually different monthly challenges that Strava sponsors that can be anything from distance-based, race-based, speed-based. Like I said, these challenges can really be anything. But then another cool thing that I've only recently started to get into is brand challenges. And the nice thing about brand challenges is they might put something out like, in the month of April, try to run 100 miles, or in the month of April, try to run a mile under this pace. Whatever the challenge might be, increase your mileage this month, or this much in the month of April. I'm using monthly examples just because that's what's fresh in my mind from the ones that I've taken on recently. But the nice thing about these brand challenges is a lot of times there's some kind of reward for completing the challenge. So it may be discounts to the brand's website, or there may be a sweepstakes that you can get entered in, and sometimes they'll even have an overall mileage challenge where whoever gets the highest mileage for whatever the given period of time might be gets some kind of elite prize at the finish line. So again, just like I said, another cool way that the app is engaging athletes around the world and really pushing you maybe past your comfort zone or to try to push yourself to higher limits that you might not have achieved without it. So it's a really cool way. It really is emphasizes the social aspect of the Strava app. I think that's something that they've been really focusing on recently. I know when I first started using this probably 4 or 5 years ago, I really just used it as a means of tracking my own running data just because it was an easy app to do so. But in the recent past, they've really kind of emphasized that interaction aspect, that social aspect, so helping increase engagement with other people in the app through things like challenges, clubs, and then also the organization of the Strava feed, where you can see your own activities as well as the activities of others. So the challenges are just another way to kind of encourage you to engage with other athletes from around the app, and then offers that reward at the finish line. The number 4 feature, which is immensely helpful, and I actually didn't discover until probably a year or so into using the app, is the ability to track the mileage on your shoes. This is huge for runners. Up until that point, I really only knew how to judge if my shoes had reached their limit when I would go out for a run and my legs might feel a little bit sore or something felt off, and after a few runs I would say, hey, maybe my shoes are worn down, it might be time to upgrade them. Using the Strava app is the perfect way to do that. And then also, as I've gotten more advanced in running and started to add more pairs of shoes, I now cycle through a few different pairs. It just makes it so much easier to track the mileage on all of your gear. And I believe there's also a feature to track the mileage on bicycles as well if you're using a bike. So the nice thing about the running part is, like I said, you can't do it on the app. You have to log into the website, but you go to the settings on your personal page. You're able to upload your different gear. You can nickname them. You can select different models. So if you keep getting the same model of shoe each year, you can give each one a different name so it's easy to identify them. But you can also set mileage limits on them. So I know I have mileage limits, I think around 350 or 400 miles for all of my shoes. And anytime I hit that, Strava just sends me a push notification. Hey, just so you know, you just hit 400 miles on these shoes, or 350 on these shoes. So I know it might be time to start thinking about retiring those or start looking for a new pair. So that's immensely helpful. But then, like I said, if you're running and cycling through 2, 3, 4 pairs of shoes, that's probably the most I've ever had. I know some people have a lot more than that. The nice thing is, after a run, you can just go into the run data and click edit, and this you can do through the app. You just edit the run and you'll see a spot on there where it'll say gear and it'll have your shoes listed, and you can just click on that drop down menu and pick the pairs of shoes that you ran in, so that way it'll automatically keep that mileage updated. If there's a favorite pair of shoes you have, you can also, through the settings on the website, select a default pair of shoes, and it'll just automatically apply all of your miles to that shoe unless you physically go in and change it. So this is, like I said, a hugely and immensely helpful feature that I've been using a lot recently, especially if you're running with multiple pairs of shoes. It just helps you keep organized and keep track of the miles on those shoes, and also lets you know when those shoes might be reaching the end of their lifetime. The 5th and final feature of Strava that I want to highlight is probably the one that I use absolutely most often, and that's the social integration of Strava with other apps. So like I said, Strava is a social network in and of itself, but it's really designed and catered towards athletes specifically. So it's designed for you to record your activities and share with other athletes while also seeing what other athletes are up to. But Strava also understands there might be other social media sites or apps that you want to share your activities with, and so they integrate with those apps so that you can share what you're doing on other platforms. For me specifically, I love sharing my Strava runs on Instagram. What I really appreciate in Strava is that if you go into one of your activities that you want to share, if you want to share your latest run, you can choose to share a map of your run with the data just overlaid on the map at the bottom, or you can actually upload a picture from your phone gallery. So if you took a picture on your run, you took a selfie, took a picture of your medal from a race, whatever the picture might be, you can upload it or add it to your Strava activity. And then when you go to share that activity, it'll give you the option to share that picture with your run analytics and run data overlaid over that picture. So it'll show your mileage, your pace, your overall time. I believe you can customize what information it shows if there's specific information that you want to share. And it's just nice for me, like I said, specifically, I use it all the time to create Instagram posts, but it works with Instagram, it works with Facebook, it works with Twitter, pretty much any social networking app that you want to use. You can share that Strava data, so you're not just sharing it to the other athletes you follow, but also your friends and family as well, hopefully to inspire them to maybe join Strava or to get out and get active themselves. So I use it a lot for Instagram. They also just added a feature that integrates with Instagram stories. So before it really just created a picture that you could share for an Instagram post. Now it creates, it's customized for stories as well, so you can share Instagram stories if you're interested in that. So a very cool feature. Like I said, definitely the one that I use most often. It's as easy as just adding a picture to your activity and then sharing it right from the Strava app, but I use it all the time and it's definitely my favorite feature. So there you have it. Those are my 5 favorite features of the Strava app. If you've never used the app before, I definitely encourage you to give it a try. Like I said, it's incredibly easy to get up and running with the app. All you have to do is sign in. You can create a profile through Facebook, through Google. You can just create your own profile with an email and password. But once you're logged in, you can literally, as soon as you log in, there's a little plus button at the bottom. You can just click that button and be out and running right away just using the GPS on your phone. If you'd like, or have a running watch or some kind of device, you can sync your device with the app so that you can just use the running metrics that are recorded on your watch and have those synced directly with the app. But it's just a great way not only to track your activities, but then also start interacting with other athletes from around the world. So if you don't use Strava, I hope you give it a try. If you have any questions about the app, please feel free to reach out. Like I said, I've been using it for 3, 4, maybe 5 years at this point. So I'm pretty familiar with a lot of the features. Definitely still learning because Strava is doing a lot to continue to improve what they offer. So looking forward to seeing what they have in store. But yeah, if you haven't used it before, please give it a try. Congratulations on making it through another week. I hope you enjoyed this week's edition of the Friday 5, and I hope you have a phenomenal weekend. Cheers.